tell me just kind of a brief history, from when you started and to now where it's a career for you. That's a pretty big leap for most people. Music can't be a career. They aren't really making a career out of it. So how did that work for you? What was kind of this journey that you took to get to being a career musician?
I think it's been a lot of bumps in the road. It's been a lot of trying to just make it work where I can. It's been a lot of support from friends, living on their couches and, finding places to squat here and there. A little back and forth to mom and dad's here and there. I think it's been kind of a bit of a, there hasn't been any kind of sense of regular 9 to 5 and like building the bank account and the white picket fence. Like I feel like as a musician, that's really hard to do until you get to the point where you're making, the big bucks, because that's kind of like something that we make a lot of sacrifices that way in order to be able to create our art. I certainly don't regret any of that. I got married and divorced real young. I never had any kids. I was just always pouring myself into the music scene and trying to get plugged in wherever I could. Fortunately for me, I have a little bit of talent and I've been able to, work my way up. And
I would say a lot, but you can say a little if you'd like.
Get to some places that I really wanted to get to. And some doors have just kind of opened, especially coming here in Nashville. You can honestly easily make a living here and still have a somewhat normal life because the music never dies in this town. But I don't know. I mean, I think the service industry was a real big part of that for me too, because it allowed me I was a bartender and a server for years. And it allowed me to have the flexibility and the freedom to also be doing the shows and stuff like that on the days that I needed to book off. And I would assume kind of like LA with the actors, a lot of them work in restaurants and bars as well, just to kind of, float the pocketbook, so to speak. So, I mean, I did my best to make it work. And I had a lot of help along the way. I'm certainly not discrediting anybody who has ever let me sleep on their couch. I've called my parents for money before, I've borrowed money off my siblings, and it is what it is. I mean, at the end of the day, I've had lots of help and lots of support, and I'm hoping to one day just be able to give it all back to them and let them know how much I appreciated that, because they made some sacrifices alongside me for me being able to do this too. So
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I am curious with, you said your whole family is kind of blue collar.
Yeah.
A lot of times the attitude of blue collar is one of the coolest. It's I'm going to make this thing work. Yeah. It's I'm going to fix this. I'm going to find a solution. It's very solution oriented. Yes. As a group of people, like it's always we're going to help each other. It's very team oriented. And for you, like, was there ever a time where like your parents were like, hey, let's go to that backup plan of cosmetology, or was it always just gung ho, hey, whatever we can do to help?
I think it's been a little bit of both along the way. I think there's kind of been like my little sister is a musician too, and I think that she has also experienced this. It's kind of like, I think it's been stressful for our parents because it's been difficult for us too, right? And your parents want to see you settled, they want to see you happy, and they want to see you safe. And the happiness has always been there, but the happiness is hard to have when you don't feel secure. And when you don't have financial security, there's that whole balance, right? So I've gone through periods, and so has my sister, where we've just like not been able to, like, I'm not knowing where I'm going to have my next meal come from. Do you know what I mean? Like we've been through that. And that's the point where we've had to call parents, and parents have been like, okay, that's why you have this trade. Go get a job hairdressing somewhere. Go get a job in a bar. But that being said too, my father and my mom, they've just taught us to hustle. And I don't think that they really ever intended to do that. I think it's just kind of like, we've always been able to go out and get jobs. My dad is super personable. My mom is very practical, and I have both of those sides. And I've always been able to utilize those skills and those things that both they have, that I can make it work for myself. So I've always been able to, no matter where I land, sorry, my nose ring is bugging me.
No, you're good.
No matter where I land, I've always been able to go jump out, grab a bar job somewhere and make really quick money to be able to get myself supported and on my feet, and then jump back into music. So
Yeah.
I think I've got a bit of that hustler in me too. And so does my little sister, like it's just, I think that's part of the musician thing too, is like, you got to grind, and you got to grind in ways that you don't want to somehow so that you can down the line.
Yeah. I'm convinced that musicians are some of the hardest working people I've ever talked to, I've ever met. Cause it's not just like the hard work, because it is obviously a lot of work. Like you said, there's days where it is more work than fun.
Yeah.
But not just that, but there's so much more to it. There's a lot of emotional work that's going in. There's the physical work, but then there's a lot of kind of there's stresses that musicians face that a lot of people don't face, where it's like, most people don't have to worry about like a writer's block or a creative block or not feeling it that day. You can't just phone it in. Like almost every night is like a resume, right? It's like the next show depends on how this show goes.
Yeah.
And for you, when you feel like things are just kind of spiraling, how is it that you have, you've obviously said you're able to get yourself back on your feet by kind of using your skills. But how is it that you find yourself motivated to get back to the music?
I think it's just like, it's in my blood. So it's never been trying to get back to the music. It's always, I've actually tried to run from it, to be completely
honest. Oh, interesting.
I have, I've quit doing music on a few occasions for a couple of years at a time. And I just like, I end up going crazy. I end up like spiraling into depression. And this last time, over COVID, I had no choice. I had to quit doing music. And I struggled with depression. I don't think I've ever been so mentally unstable in my entire life. Like I got to the point where I was I was going to see a psychiatrist and stuff, because I was like, something is wrong with my brain, that it felt like I was just going through this devastating death of a person. And honestly, what it was is that I just couldn't do music. I couldn't write. I couldn't sing in front of people. There was no live audience. There was no any of that. And I just was spiraling down. And for me with that, it was a lot of talk therapy. And then once I got back to Nashville, there's a lot of resources here for artists and touring musicians and stuff like that. So I got involved with some of those, and it's been super helpful. But it's just like, I don't think it's ever been about going back to the music for me. I think I've tried to fight it a few times, and it just doesn't work, because it's my purpose as far as I'm concerned. It's what I'm supposed to do. And I've had this conversation with my aunt and my uncle before, because my uncle is very big, like financial retirement, make sure you got all your ducks in a row when you're, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's really great. I think that's super smart. And he absolutely should do that. He's built a great little empire, and his sons have kind of grown up in that environment, and they've built really great security for themselves as well. And he had a conversation with me once, and he's like, what are you going to do for a retirement plan? And I was like, I don't plan on retiring. And he just looked at me like, what? Like, well, what are you going to do when you're 70? I'm like, I'll be sitting on a stool singing somewhere. And he's like, in a bar? I'm like, if that's what it looks like. And he's like, well, you got to stop singing sometime. I'm like, yep. When I got 2 feet, 6 feet in the ground, that's probably when I'll stop singing. And he's like, okay. But if you had have asked me when I was 5 years old, what do you want to be when you're older? I said a singer, and I'm still here at 40 trying to do it. So
yeah.
I agree with you. Back to the musicians are the hardest working. I think we're also confused with flaky, just because we will sacrifice a lot of stuff for our art. But I think at the end of the day, for those of us who have it in our bones, we are the most consistent with having to stick with it. Even if we try not to, and we try to break up with it for a little bit. It's like that relationship that just never, it comes back around, and it's like, you're stuck with it. And it's, you make friends with it, you fall in love with it, you fall out of love with it, you fall back in love with it. And it's like a little dance that you just have to learn to do. And
it's the toxic boyfriend, huh?
Yeah. But then you learn, you grow with it, and you learn how to make it healthy and work for you and all that kind of stuff, depending on if you've done that for yourself. So